Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Taze Sovereign, staring out at the stars. The massive ship floated in space near Earth, its metal hull gleaming under the light of distant suns. Jake had been in command of Earth's main fleet for 5 years now, and he had never seen anything like what was coming through the communications system. The red alert lights flashed across the bridge. Captain Lisa Grant walked quickly to his side, her face pale and worried. She held a datapad in her hands, and Jake could see her fingers shaking slightly. "Admiral, we're getting an emergency signal from Earth Command," Lisa said. Her voice was steady, but Jake knew her well enough to hear the fear underneath. "It's marked as highest priority." Jake nodded and moved to the main screen. "Put it through." The screen flickered to life, showing the face of General Robert Hayes, the head of Earth's military command. The old man's gray hair was messy, and dark circles showed under his eyes. It looked like he had not slept in days. "Jake, we have a problem," General Hayes said, without any greeting. "The Galactic Council has sent us a message. You need to see this." The screen changed to show 12 alien faces arranged in a circle. Jake recognized some of them from the intelligence files he had studied. There was Korthovel, the insect-like creature that led the Hegemony fleet. Next to him sat Zeroth, the tall blue alien from the Kalani Republic. The others were equally strange and frightening. The center alien, a creature with gray skin and large black eyes, began to speak. Its voice was cold and mechanical, translated by computer systems. "People of Earth," the alien said, "I am High Chancellor Mordok of the Galactic Council. For too long, your species has spread across space, like a disease. You take planets that do not belong to you. You build weapons that threaten the peace we have kept for thousands of years." Jake felt his hands tighten into fists. He had heard rumors that the Council was unhappy with human expansion, but this was different. This was a threat. "The Council has decided to give you one chance," Mordok continued. "You will remove all human settlements from space beyond your home system. You have 30 of your Earth days to comply. Any humans found on colony worlds after this time will be destroyed. Any ships that resist will be eliminated. This is not a request. This is your final warning." The message ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Jake stared at the blank screen, his mind racing. 30 days to abandon all the colonies that humans had built over the last century. Millions of people living on dozens of worlds, all told to pack up and leave their homes. "Sir," Lisa asked quietly, "what are your orders?" Before Jake could answer, the communication system came alive again. This time it was President Marcus Webb, calling from Earth. The president looked angry, his usually calm face red with fury. "Admiral Morrison, I need you to return to Earth immediately," Webb said. "I'm calling an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. We need to discuss our response to this ultimatum." "Understood, Mr. President," Jake replied. "We'll be there in 6 hours." As the Sovereign began its journey to Earth, Jake found himself thinking about the colonies. New Austin, with its rolling green hills and growing cities. Kepler Station, the mining operation that provided rare metals for Earth's industries. The research facilities on Europa 7, where Dr. Amy Foster and her team worked on new technologies. All of it would be lost if they followed the Council's demands. Lisa appeared at his side again. "Admiral, I've been looking at the intelligence reports about Council fleet movements. There's something you should see." She handed him the datapad, and Jake's blood ran cold as he read the information. The Council wasn't just making threats. They were already moving their ships into position around human space. Massive fleets of alien warships were gathering at strategic points, creating a wall around every human colony. "They never intended to give us 30 days, Jake said quietly. "This ultimatum is just for show. They're already preparing to attack." "That's what I think too," Lisa agreed. "The question is, what do we do about it?" Jake looked out at the stars again, but this time he saw them differently. Instead of points of light in the darkness, he saw battlefields. Instead of peaceful space, he saw the coming war. On Earth, President Webb was having the same thoughts. He sat in the Oval Office with his closest advisors, including Secretary of Defense Helen Park and Intelligence Director Carl Rogers. The mood was grim. "They want us to abandon everything we've built," Helen said, her voice filled with anger. 30 years of expansion, gone. Millions of people forced to leave their homes. "Maybe we should consider it," Carl said carefully. "The Council has ships we've never seen before. Technology that's far ahead of ours. If we fight them, we might lose everything anyway." "No," Webb said firmly. "I didn't become president to surrender to alien threats. Our people chose to make new lives on those worlds. We don't abandon our own." Dr. Amy Foster was also reading the ultimatum, but she was more interested in what it didn't say. In her laboratory on Europa 7, she studied the alien technology that human ships had recovered from crashed Council vessels over the years. There were patterns in their designs, weaknesses that could be exploited. "Computer, analyze the quantum signatures from Council shipwrecks," she said to her lab's artificial intelligence system. "Analysis complete, Dr. Foster," the computer replied. "Council ships show consistent vulnerabilities in their shield harmonics and power distribution systems." Amy smiled for the first time in days. The aliens might have superior numbers and technology, but they had grown comfortable over thousands of years of peace. They had forgotten that sometimes the smaller opponent could still win if they were smart enough and brave enough. Back on the Sovereign, Jake received another message, this one from the commander of the Outer Rim colonies. Colonel Steve Parker was reporting that Council scout ships were already appearing near human settlements, taking pictures and scanning defenses. "Admiral, they're not waiting for our answer," Parker said. "These aliens are mapping our positions right now. Whatever we decide to do, we need to do it fast." Jake made his decision. He turned to Lisa and spoke in a voice that carried across the entire bridge. "Send a message to all fleet commanders and colony leaders. Tell them to prepare for war. The Council thinks humans are weak because we're new to space. They're about to learn how wrong they are." As the Sovereign reached Earth's orbit, Jake could see the planet below, blue and beautiful, and completely unprepared for what was coming. But he also saw something else. He saw the orbital shipyards working at full speed, building new vessels. He saw the space stations bristling with defensive weapons. He saw a species that had fought for survival on one world for thousands of years, and was now ready to fight for survival among the stars. The Council had made a mistake. They thought giving humans an ultimatum would make them surrender. Instead, it had given them something much more dangerous, a reason to unite and fight back. The war was coming, and humanity would be ready. President Marcus Webb stood in front of the cameras, his face calm but his eyes burning with determination. Behind him, the flags of Earth and the Terran colonies hung side by side. The entire galaxy was watching as he prepared to give humanity's answer to the Council's ultimatum. "People of Earth, and all human colonies," he began, his voice carrying clearly across space to every human settlement. "Today, the Galactic Council demanded that we abandon our homes and return to a single world like frightened children. They believe that because we are new to space, we will bow down to their threats." He paused, letting his words sink in across the galaxy. On New Austin, families gathered around their screens. On Kepler Station, miners stopped their work to listen. Even on the farthest research stations, scientists put down their tools to hear their president's words. "I have a simple message for the Galactic Council," Webb continued, his voice growing stronger. "We bow to no one. We will not abandon our colonies. We will not surrender our freedom. If the Council wants to take our worlds, they will have to fight for every single one." The transmission ended, and across human space, people cheered. But the celebration was short-lived. Within hours, Council ships began moving closer to human territory. Commander Ryan Hayes was the first to see them coming. His destroyer, the TES Vanguard, was patrolling near Kepler Station when the sensors picked up alien ships approaching fast. Ryan had served in the Terran Navy for 12 years, but he had never seen anything like the sleek alien vessels that appeared on his screen. "All hands to battle stations," Ryan announced over the ship's communication system. "This is not a drill." The bridge became a flurry of activity as his crew prepared for battle. Lieutenant Tom Baker took his position at the weapons console while Ensign Mary Hill monitored the shields. Chief Engineer Bob Wilson made sure the engines were running at full power. "Sir, I count 6 council ships approaching," Tom reported. "They're much larger than us, but they're moving in a straight-line formation." Ryan smiled grimly. The aliens might have better technology, but they were fighting like they expected humans to run away. That was their first mistake. "Launch all drone fighters," he ordered. "Then prepare for micro-jump maneuvers." The micro-jump was a new tactic developed by human engineers. Instead of making long jumps between star systems, ships could make tiny jumps of just a few kilometers, appearing suddenly in a new position during battle. The Council had never seen anything like it. The Vanguard's drones launched first. Small automated fighters that swarmed toward the alien ships like angry insects. The Council vessels fired their energy weapons, destroying many of the drones, but they couldn't hit them all. While the aliens were distracted, Ryan ordered the micro-dash jump. The Vanguard disappeared and reappeared behind the Council formation. Before the aliens could react, the human ship fired all its missiles at the rear alien vessel. The enemy ship's shields flared and died, and the missiles punched through its hull, causing massive explosions. "One down," Tom reported with satisfaction, but the other Council ships were already turning to attack. Their weapons were powerful, and the Vanguard's shields began to weaken under the assault. Ryan knew they couldn't take much more damage. "Prepare another micro-jump," he ordered. "This time, we're going to get close and personal." The Vanguard jumped again, this time appearing right next to the largest alien ship. At point-blank range, the human ship's weapons tore through the alien vessel's hull like paper. The Council ship exploded in a ball of fire, taking 2 of its companions with it. The remaining aliens, shocked by the unexpected human tactics, began to retreat. Ryan let them go. The first battle was won, but he knew it was just the beginning. News of the victory spread quickly through human space, boosting morale among the colonies. But on Earth, Dr. Amy Foster was working on something even more important than winning battles. She was studying the wreckage from destroyed Council ships, looking for weaknesses in her laboratory. Pieces of alien technology covered every table. Amy had been working for 3 days without sleep, trying to understand how Council ships worked. Her team of scientists helped her analyze each component, from the strange power cores to the advanced shielding systems. Dr. Foster, her assistant, Kevin Moore, called from across the lab. "I think we found something important." Amy hurried over to where Kevin was working. On his computer screen was a detailed scan of an alien shield generator. At first, it looked impossibly complex, but as Amy studied it more carefully, she began to see a pattern. "The shield harmonics," she said quietly. "They're using a rotating frequency pattern, but there's a gap in the rotation, a moment when the shields are weak." "How long does the gap last?" Kevin asked. "Only about 2 seconds every 30 seconds. Amy replied. "But if we could time our weapons to fire at exactly the right moment, ... She trailed off, already thinking about how to use this discovery. If human ships could predict when Council shields would be weak, they could punch through defenses that seemed impossible to break. Meanwhile, General Kate Sullivan was preparing the colonies for war. She traveled from world to world, meeting with local militias and helping them set up defenses. Kate had fought in the border wars 20 years ago, and she knew that sometimes the side with fewer weapons could still win if they were smart about where and how they fought. On New Austin, she met with Colonel Steve Parker, the local defense commander. Steve was a former Marine who had come to New Austin to start a farm. But when the colony needed defending, he had stepped up to lead. The aliens will probably try to land troops here, Kate explained, pointing to a map of the colony. These open fields look like perfect landing zones to them, but we can use that against them. How? Steve asked. We set traps, Kate replied with a grin. Underground mines, hidden weapons, anything that'll make them regret coming here. The aliens are used to fighting in space, where everything is clean and predictable. Down here on the ground, we make our own rules. Back on Earth, President Webb received an unexpected visitor. The alien ambassador Zethkar had come to Earth, claiming he wanted to negotiate a peaceful solution. But Intelligence Director Carl Rogers was suspicious. Mr. President, I don't trust this alien, Carl said during a private meeting. He says he wants peace, but our sensors show that Council ships are still moving into attack positions around our colonies. Webb agreed to meet with the ambassador, but he was careful. The meeting took place in a secure room deep underground, with guards watching every entrance. Agent Dan Miller, one of Carl's best operatives, monitored the conversation. From a hidden location, Ambassador Zethkar was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large eyes. He spoke in perfect English, his voice smooth and friendly. But Dan noticed that the alien's eyes never stopped moving, studying every detail of the room. President Webb, the ambassador said, surely we can find a way to avoid bloodshed. Attack. Council is willing to allow humans to keep some of their smaller colonies if you abandon the larger ones. Which colonies? Webb asked. The research stations and mining operations, Zethkar replied. You could keep those, but the major population centers must be evacuated. Webb pretended to consider the offer, but he was really giving Dan time to scan the ambassador's equipment. What they found made everyone angry. Hidden in the aliens' clothing were advanced recording devices and computers that were mapping the entire facility. I'm afraid your offer is not acceptable, Webb said firmly, and this meeting is over. The ambassador's friendly mask slipped for just a moment, showing the cold hatred underneath. You are making a mistake, President Webb. The Council's power is beyond your understanding. Your species will be destroyed for your arrogance. Security guards escorted the ambassador out, but the damage was done. Now both sides knew that there would be no peaceful solution. The Galactic Council wanted humanity gone, and humans would fight to survive. As reports came in from across human space, the situation became clearer. Council ships were surrounding every human colony, not just threatening them, but actually scanning their defenses and studying their weaknesses. The 30-day ultimatum had been a lie from the beginning. Admiral Jake Morrison assembled his fleet commanders for an emergency meeting aboard the Sovereign. The holographic display showed the positions of enemy ships throughout human territory, and the picture was grim. They have us outnumbered 5-1, Admiral Nina Ross reported. She commanded the Second Fleet, based near the outer colonies. Our ships are faster and more maneuverable, but they have heavier weapons and stronger shields. We also have something they don't, Admiral Morrison replied. We have the element of surprise. They think they know how humans fight because they've been watching us for years, but they've never seen us fight for our survival. Captain Tony Clark, commander of the heavy cruiser TES Liberator, raised his hand. Sir, what about the new weapons Dr. Foster's team has been developing? Are they ready for combat? Morrison nodded. Dr. Foster has identified weaknesses in Council ship designs. Her teams are working around the clock to build weapons that can exploit those weaknesses. In 2 days, every human ship will be equipped with shield-piercing missiles. The meeting continued late into the night as they planned humanity's defense. They knew the odds were against them, but they also knew they had no choice. The Council had made it clear that surrender meant the end of human civilization among the stars. As the meeting ended, Morrison stood alone on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the stars where council ships waited like vultures. The war was about to begin, and humanity was as ready as they could be. They might be outnumbered and outgunned, but they had something the aliens had forgotten about during their thousands of years of easy victory: the desperate courage of people fighting for their homes and families. The next day, council fleets began their advance toward human colonies. The real war was about to start. The attack came at dawn, across 12 human worlds simultaneously. Fleet Admiral Korthovel of the Hegemony commanded the largest alien armada ever assembled, confident that the primitive humans would collapse within hours. His insect-like features showed satisfaction as he watched the attack begin from his flagship. "Begin Operation Cleansing Dawn," he clicked in his strange language. "Show these mammals what happens when they defy the Council." But Korthovel had made the same mistake as the rest of the Galactic Council. He thought humans would fight like other species the Council had conquered, standing in neat formations and following predictable tactics. He was about to learn how wrong he was. On New Austin, Colonel Steve Parker crouched in a hidden bunker deep in the planet's forest. Around him, his soldiers waited quietly as the first alien ships landed in the clearings they had prepared. The aliens had taken the bait perfectly, landing exactly where the humans wanted them to. "Remember," Steve whispered into his radio, "let them get comfortable first. Wait for my signal." The alien soldiers that emerged from their ships were tall and heavily armored, carrying energy weapons that could cut through steel. They moved in perfect formation across the open ground, scanning for human defenders. They found nothing, and their confidence grew. That was when Steve gave the signal. The ground beneath the aliens exploded as hidden mines detonated. Trees that looked normal suddenly opened up to reveal concealed weapons. Human soldiers appeared from underground tunnels and began firing from all directions. The aliens, caught completely off guard, stumbled and fell as their perfect formation turned into chaos. Captain Nina Ross watched the battle from her ship in orbit above New Austin. Her sensors showed alien landing craft trying to reach the surface, while human fighters swarmed around them like angry bees. The new shield-piercing missiles that Dr. Foster had designed were working perfectly, punching through alien defenses that had seemed impossible to break. "Target the command ship," Nina ordered her weapons officer. "Let's cut off their communication." The TES Defender fired its full missile load at the largest alien vessel. The missiles struck just as the ship's shields reached their weak point in the rotation cycle, and the enemy craft erupted in flames. Without their command ship, the other alien vessels began making mistakes, flying into each other or firing at their own forces. Above 12 different worlds, similar battles were taking place. Admiral Jake Morrison coordinated the defense from his flagship, watching as human tactics that the aliens had never seen before turned what should have been an easy victory into a bloody mess. The humans were fighting dirty, and they didn't care. They used the terrain to their advantage, hid in places the aliens never thought to look, and struck without warning before disappearing again. It was warfare that the Council had never experienced, and they didn't know how to respond. Dr. Amy Foster was aboard the TES Constitution, testing her latest invention in real combat. The neural disruption field was designed to interfere with the telepathic communication that several alien species used to coordinate their fleets. When she activated it, the results were immediate and devastating. "Neural field is active," she reported to Admiral Morrison. "Alien coordination is breaking down across their entire fleet." On the main screen, they could see Council ships suddenly changing course without warning, crashing into each other, or firing on their own allies. The aliens who relied on mental communication were completely lost without it, like a person trying to fight with their eyes closed. The battle for Kepler Station became the most important fight of the day. The mining facility produced rare metals that human technology needed, and both sides knew its value. Captain Tony Clark commanded the defense from his ship, the TES Liberator, while Commander Sarah Blake led the ground forces. The aliens attacked, with overwhelming force, sending wave after wave of ships against the station's defenses. But the humans had prepared for this. Hidden among the asteroids around Kepler were dozens of automated defense platforms, programmed to activate only when the battle began. Now, Tony shouted as the alien fleet moved into the trap. The asteroids came alive with weapons fire. What the aliens had thought was empty space suddenly filled with missiles and energy beams. Ships that had been advancing confidently found themselves surrounded by firepower they hadn't known existed. On the station itself, Sarah's soldiers fought from prepared positions in the mining tunnels. The aliens had superior weapons and armor, but the humans knew every passage and ventilation shaft in the facility. They appeared behind alien forces, struck hard, and vanished into the maze of tunnels before the enemy could respond. "They're trying to reach the main reactor," Sarah reported over the radio. "If they destroy it, the whole station goes up." "Not if I can help it," Tony replied. He ordered his ship to perform a dangerous maneuver, diving toward the station at full speed, while alien ships fired at him from all sides. At the last moment, he fired his ship's main guns directly through the station's docking bay, where alien soldiers were advancing toward the reactor. The blast cleared out the entire area, saving the reactor, but also damaging the station. It was a desperate move, but it worked. The aliens fell back, unable to take their objective. The most surprising victory came at Europa 7, where Dr. Foster's research team had been working on new technologies. When the aliens attacked, they expected to find helpless scientists. Instead, they found themselves facing weapons that shouldn't have existed. Dr. Kevin Moore, Amy's assistant, had been working on adaptive AI systems that could learn from enemy tactics in real time. When the alien ships approached, these AI systems studied their movement patterns and began predicting what they would do next. "The AI is working," Kevin reported excitedly to his team. "It's learning their attack patterns faster than they can change them." Human ships equipped with the AI systems began moving like they could read the aliens' minds, dodging attacks before they were fired and striking at weak points the moment they appeared. It was like fighting an enemy who could see the future. But the victories came at a terrible cost. The TES Guardian, commanded by Captain Pete Williams, took heavy damage while protecting a colony ship full of civilians. Half of Pete's crew was killed before reinforcements could arrive. The destroyer, Taze Ranger, exploded while ramming an alien cruiser, taking all hands with it, but saving a human colony. As the day-long battle continued, both sides began to realize that this war would be different from what they had expected. The aliens had thought they would crush human resistance in hours. The humans had hoped their tricks and tactics would be enough to drive the aliens away completely. Instead, both sides found themselves locked in a deadly struggle that neither could easily win. The aliens had more ships and better technology, but the humans were fighting for their homes and families with a desperation the Council had never faced before. Admiral Morrison received reports from all 12 battle zones as the fighting entered its second day. The news was mixed. Humans had successfully defended 9 of the targeted worlds, but 3 colonies had been lost. Thousands of people on both sides were dead, and many more were wounded. "Sir," Captain Lisa Grant reported, "we're getting a transmission from the Council fleet. Admiral Korthovel wants to talk." Morrison almost laughed. After 24 hours of trying to exterminate humanity, now the aliens wanted to negotiate. Put him through. The insect-like alien appeared on the screen, his compound eyes showing what might have been respect. "Admiral Morrison, your species fights with surprising skill. The Council is prepared to offer new terms." "What terms?" Morrison asked, though he already knew what the answer would be. "Surrender now, and we will allow your people to live as servants rather than destroying them." "Completely?" Korthovel replied. "This is more generous than the Council has ever been with a defeated enemy." Morrison's response was simple and direct. Admiral Corthel Valhir, our humanity's terms. Get out of our space, leave our worlds alone, and never come back. Those are the only terms we'll accept. The alien's features showed shock and anger. You cannot be serious. We have barely begun to fight. When the Council brings its full power against you, your species will be wiped from existence. Maybe, Morrison replied calmly, but we'll take a lot of you with us. And every day this war continues, we learn more about how to kill your ships and your soldiers. Ask yourself, how many of your people are you willing to sacrifice to destroy a species that just wants to be left alone? The transmission ended with Cortevel's angry clicking echoing across the bridge, but Morrison could see that his words had hit home. The alien commander had expected an easy victory, and instead, he had lost dozens of ships and thousands of soldiers, fighting humans who refused to give up. As reports came in from across the battle zones, the picture became clearer. The Galactic Council had failed to achieve their quick victory. They had been forced to retreat from 3 of the 12 worlds they had attacked, and their losses were mounting rapidly. But the humans had paid a price too. The colonies of Haven's Rest, Freedom Point, and New Frontier had fallen to overwhelming alien force. Millions of people had been evacuated, but thousands more had died defending their homes. Dr. Foster analyzed the battle data from her position aboard the Constitution. Admiral, the alien tactics are already adapting to our tricks, she reported. They're learning from their mistakes. The next time they attack, it won't be so easy to surprise them. Morrison nodded. He had expected this. The first battles had gone well because the aliens underestimated human capabilities. But the Council had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years by learning from their enemies and adapting their strategies. Then we'll have to stay one step ahead of them, he replied. How long until you can have new weapons ready? Give me 2 weeks, Amy said. I have some ideas about quantum torpedoes that might even the odds. As the first major battles of the war ended, both sides pulled back to lick their wounds and plan their next moves. The aliens had learned that humans were far more dangerous than they had imagined. The humans had learned that the Council's power was real and terrible. But the most important lesson was this: neither side was going to give up easily. The Galactic Council had committed too much to back down now, and humanity had nowhere to retreat to. This would be a fight to the finish, with the winner taking control of the galaxy and the loser facing extinction. The war had truly begun, and there would be no going back. 6 months had passed since the war began, and the conflict had spread like fire across 40 star systems. What started as the Council's plan to quickly destroy humanity had become a grinding war of attrition that was costing both sides dearly. The Galactic Council was growing desperate. Their easy victories had turned into bloody battles where every human world cost them dozens of ships and thousands of soldiers. In frustration, they began using tactics they had never needed before, bombing civilian targets and destroying entire cities from orbit. On the colony world of New Hope, Commander Beth Taylor watched in horror as Council ships rained fire down on evacuation centers. Families with children ran through burning streets, while alien fighters hunted them from above. The attack had no military purpose except to spread terror. Those monsters, Beth whispered, her hands clenched into fists. They're targeting schools and hospitals. But the Council's brutal tactics had an effect they never expected. Instead of breaking human morale, the attacks made people even more determined to fight across human space. Civilian populations who had been unsure about the war now demanded revenge against the aliens who murdered children. The images of burning cities and dead families spread through human media, creating a wave of anger that united the species like nothing ever had before. President Marcus Webb used this rage to convince neutral alien species that the Council had become a threat to everyone in the galaxy. Today, they bomb human children, Webb said in a broadcast that reached every civilized world. Tomorrow, it might be your children. The council claims to bring peace, but all they bring is death to anyone who refuses to kneel before them. The message worked. 3 smaller alien species quietly began sending supplies to human forces, and intelligence reports suggested that too. Council member species were having serious doubts about continuing the war. Admiral Jake Morrison decided it was time to take the offensive. For 6 months, humans had been defending their worlds and reacting to council attacks. Now it was time to hit back where it would hurt the most. Operation Lightning Strike was born from intelligence, gathered by Agent Beth Taylor and her network of spies. Working undercover on council worlds, human agents had mapped the enemy's supply lines and identified their weakest points. The council's biggest vulnerability was their reliance on a single massive logistics hub at Arcturus Station. If we can destroy Arcturus, Morrison explained to his fleet commanders, we cut off supplies to half their invasion force. Their ships will be stranded without fuel or ammunition. The plan was risky. Arcturus Station was defended by an entire council fleet and protected by some of the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. But Morrison had new tools to work with. Thanks to Dr. Amy Foster's tireless research, Dr. Foster had spent months analyzing captured alien technology, and her latest breakthrough was revolutionary. The adaptive AI warfare systems could now predict enemy movements with incredible accuracy and coordinate attacks between hundreds of ships simultaneously. The AI doesn't just learn from what the enemy does, Amy explained to Morrison before. The attack? It learns from what they don't do, from the choices they avoid. It's like playing chess against someone whose every move you can predict. The attack on Arcturus began with a diversion. Captain Sam Hughes led a task force against a smaller council base, making enough noise to draw attention away from the real target. The aliens took the bait, sending reinforcements to help defend what they thought was humanity's main objective. While the council was distracted, Morrison's main fleet used new stealth technology to approach Arcturus undetected. The station was enormous, a metal city floating in space that supplied the council's war machine. Its destruction would cripple their ability to continue fighting. All ships, begin the attack, Morrison ordered, as his fleet dropped out of stealth mode right on top of the station. The battle was fierce but brief. The AI systems coordinated the human attacks so perfectly that it seemed like the ships were dancing together, each one striking at exactly the right moment to cause maximum damage. The council defenders, caught completely off guard, couldn't respond fast enough to the perfectly timed assault. Within 2 hours, Arcturus Station was a burning wreck floating in space. The explosion was so large it could be seen from nearby star systems, and its light carried a message across the galaxy. Humanity was no longer just defending itself. It was fighting to win. The destruction of Arcturus had immediate effects across Council territory. Supply convoys that had been heading to invasion fleets suddenly had nowhere to go. Ships that needed fuel and ammunition found themselves stranded in enemy territory. The Council's carefully planned offensive began to fall apart. Admiral Nina Ross, newly promoted after her success at New Austin, led the liberation of Kepler-4 for to be a mining world, where the Council had been using captured humans as slaves. The rescue mission became one of the war's most important propaganda victories. The planet's underground resistance, led by former merchant marine Jack Wright, had been fighting a guerrilla war against their alien captors for months. When Ross's fleet arrived, Jack's people were ready to help. "We've been mapping their guard positions for weeks," Jack reported over a secured channel. "Hit their command center first, and we can take the rest of the planet in hours." The liberation of Kepler-4 for 2b was broadcast live across human space, showing families reuniting and freed prisoners embracing their rescuers. The images of human courage and alien cruelty convinced even more neutral species to quietly support the human cause. But the most important development came from Dr. Foster's laboratory aboard the new Titan-class battleship TES Constitution. Her team had achieved what many thought impossible. They had created technology that was actually superior to Council systems. The new Titan-class ships were massive, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy an entire alien fleet. But their real advantage was the adaptive AI systems that made them nearly impossible to hit and deadly accurate when they fired back. Captain Luke Davis commanded the first Titan ship to see combat, leading an attack on a Council fortress world that had been considered impregnable. The battle showed the galaxy what human engineering could accomplish when pushed to its limits. Target their main defensive grid, Davis ordered as his ship approached the alien fortifications. The Constitution's weapons fired with mechanical precision, each shot hitting exactly where it would cause the most damage. The alien defenses, designed to stop conventional attacks, couldn't cope with an enemy that seemed to know their every weakness. Within 6 hours, a fortress that had protected the Council for centuries was reduced to rubble. The psychological impact was enormous, both for human morale and for alien confidence in their supposed superiority. As human forces continued their offensive, cracks began appearing in the Galactic Council itself. The Vorf species, who had been fighting alongside the Council for thousands of years, began questioning whether the war was worth the massive casualties they were suffering. Secret peace talks began through back channels, with moderate aliens reaching out to human diplomats. But President Webb, now confident that humanity could actually win the war, rejected any compromise that left the Council in power. They started this war by demanding our surrender, Webb told his cabinet during one heated discussion. Now they want to negotiate from a position of weakness. Why should we accept anything less than total victory? Secretary of Defense Helen Park agreed. The Council has ruled through fear and intimidation for thousands of years. If we don't destroy their power completely, they'll just rebuild their forces and attack us again in 50 years. Intelligence Director Carl Rogers had been monitoring communications from Council worlds, and his reports supported the aggressive approach. Their alliance is fracturing, he reported. 3 species have already withdrawn their fleets from combat zones. If we keep the pressure on, the whole Council might collapse. The war's turning point came when the Kalani Republic, one of the Council's founding members, secretly agreed to provide intelligence about Council military plans. The Kalani had grown tired of the war's massive cost and were impressed by humanity's determination and military skill. With inside information about Council fleet movements, human forces began winning battle after battle. Ships that thought they were safely hidden found themselves under attack by enemies who knew exactly where they were. Supply convoys disappeared without a trace, sabotaged by intelligence that could only have come from within the Council itself. Admiral Morrison coordinated the new offensive from his flagship, watching as the strategic situation changed almost daily in humanity's favor. The aliens, who had seemed so powerful 6 months ago, were now retreating on every front, their forces scattered and demoralized. Sir, Captain Lisa Grant reported during one of their daily briefings, we're receiving surrender offers from 17 different Council commanders. They're asking for safe passage out of human space in exchange for laying down their weapons. Morrison considered the offers carefully. Accepting surrenders would save human lives, but it would also allow enemy forces to escape and potentially regroup. After consulting with President Webb, he made a decision that would define the rest of the war. Tell them we accept their surrenders, but with conditions, he said. They give us their ships, their weapons, and complete intelligence about remaining Council forces. In return, we'll transport their crews to neutral territory and guarantee their safety. Most of the alien commanders accepted these terms. They had seen what happened to forces that continued fighting, and they preferred exile to extinction. Each surrender gave humanity more ships, more technology, and more information about how to defeat the remaining Council forces. Dr. Foster used the captured technology to create even more advanced weapons. Her latest project, quantum torpedoes that could phase through shields and armor, made human ships nearly invincible in battle. The balance of power had shifted so far that Council fleets began retreating whenever human ships appeared. As the 6th month of war ended, the strategic situation had completely reversed. Instead of desperately defending their colonies, humans were advancing on multiple fronts toward the Council's core worlds. The aliens who had started the war with confident predictions of easy victory now faced the possibility of total defeat. But Morrison knew the hardest fighting was still ahead. The Council's most powerful fleets were pulling back to defend their capital worlds, where they would make their final stand. The next phase of the war would determine whether humanity could complete its transformation from galactic newcomer to the dominant power in known space. The tide had turned, but the final victory still had to be won. The final assault on Nexus Prime, capital world of the Galactic Council, began exactly 1 year after the aliens had delivered their ultimatum to humanity. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the massive fleet assembled around him. 200 human ships filled the space around the ancient world, representing the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. The Tay's Constitution, commanded by Captain Luke Davis, led the formation. The massive Titan-class battleship was equipped with every advanced weapon Dr. Amy Foster had developed during the Long War. Behind it came dozens of smaller ships, each one crewed by veterans who had learned to fight among the stars. All ships, report ready for battle, Captain Lisa Grant announced from her position at Morrison's side. After a year of war, she had been promoted to serve as his fleet coordinator, helping manage the complex attack that would determine the fate of the galaxy on the planet below. The Council's last desperate defense was taking shape. Every remaining alien fleet had been pulled back to protect their capital, creating the largest concentration of enemy firepower in the war. But the aliens were no longer fighting to conquer humanity. Now they were fighting simply to survive. General Kate Sullivan commanded the ground forces aboard the transport ships waiting behind the main fleet. Her soldiers were veterans of dozens of battles, trained in the harsh school of interstellar warfare. They had learned to fight in every environment from asteroid mines to jungle worlds, and they were ready for whatever the Council could throw at them. The orbital defenses are stronger than anything we've faced before, Kate reported during the final briefing. But our intelligence suggests that most of the alien ground forces are demoralized. If we can break through their space defenses, the planet should fall quickly. The intelligence came from the Kalani Republic and other former Council members, who had secretly switched sides during the war. The reports painted a picture of a civilization in collapse, with different alien species blaming each other for the disasters that had befallen them. Dr. Foster was aboard the Constitution, supervising the deployment of her most devastating creation yet. The quantum disruptor network had taken months to put in place, with human agents secretly installing the devices on dozens of worlds throughout Council space. When activated, the network would destroy every Council communication system simultaneously, leaving their forces blind and confused. The disruptors are ready, Amy reported to Morrison over the fleet communication system. Once we activate them, the Council fleets won't be able to coordinate their defense. Morrison nodded and opened a channel to all ships in the human fleet. Attention all vessels. Today we finish what the Council started 1 year ago. They thought they could frighten us into surrendering our freedom. Instead, they awakened something they never expected. A united humanity that refuses to bow to anyone. He paused, looking out at the alien world that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Today, that rule ends. All ships begin the attack. The battle for Nexus Prime started with the activation of Dr. Foster's quantum disruptor network. Across dozens of star systems, carefully hidden devices came to life and began broadcasting signals that tore apart the Council's communication networks. In seconds, fleets that had been coordinating their movements for millennia were suddenly cut off from each other. The effect was immediate and devastating. Council ships that had been moving in perfect formation suddenly began colliding with each other as their pilots lost contact with their commanders. Orders that should have reached the entire fleet in minutes never arrived at all. "Disruptor network is active," Amy reported with satisfaction. "Council communications are down across their entire territory." With the enemy fleet in chaos, Morrison ordered the main attack to begin. The Constitution led the charge, its massive guns firing quantum torpedoes that passed through Council shields like they weren't there. The alien defenses, designed to stop conventional weapons, were helpless against the new human technology. Admiral Nina Ross commanded the Second Fleet, attacking from a different angle to split the Council's attention. Her ships moved with the fluid precision that had become the hallmark of human space combat, striking hard and fast before vanishing into the confusion of battle. The orbital stations defending Nexus Prime had been built over centuries and were considered the strongest fortifications in the galaxy, but they had been designed to fight enemies who used predictable tactics and familiar technology against human forces that seemed to appear from nowhere and strike at impossible angles. The ancient defenses crumbled. Captain Tony Clark commanded the heavy cruiser Tay's Liberator in the thick of the fighting. His ship had survived every major battle of the war, earning a reputation that made enemy pilots afraid to face it. Now, in the war's final battle, Tony pushed his ship and crew to their limits. "Target the command station," he ordered his weapons officer. "If we can take out their central control, the whole defense grid will collapse." The Liberator charged straight at the massive alien fortress, dodging energy beams that could have destroyed a mountain. At point-blank range, Tony's ship fired everything it had at the station's core. The explosion lit up space like a new star, and the defensive grid began shutting down section by section. But the Council had one last desperate card to play. Fleet Admiral Korthovel, the insect-like commander who had led the first attack on human space, loaded his flagship with explosives and aimed it directly at Morrison's command ship. If he could kill the human admiral, the Council might still find a way to survive. Captain Tony Clark saw the alien ship coming and made a decision that would be remembered for centuries. Instead of trying to escape, he turned the Liberator toward the enemy flagship and pushed his engines to maximum power. "All hands, abandon ship," Tony ordered over the ship's communication system. "I'm taking us in." "Sir, we can't leave you," his weapons officer protested. "That's an order," Tony replied firmly. "Tell my family I died fighting for humanity's freedom." The Liberator slammed into Korthovel's ship just seconds before it would have reached Morrison's flagship. The double explosion was visible from the planet's surface. A brief second sun that marked the end of the Council's last hope for victory. With their commanding admiral dead and their defenses crumbling, the remaining Council fleets began to surrender or flee. Those that tried to escape found their way blocked by human ships that had anticipated every possible retreat route. General Sullivan's ground forces landed on Nexus Prime to find a planet in chaos. The different alien species that made up the Council had turned on each other, blaming their allies for the military disasters. Some areas of the capital city were burning as alien factions fought each other instead of the human invaders. "Resistance is lighter than expected," Kate reported as her troops secured the government district. "Most of the alien military units are surrendering without a fight. It looks like they've had enough of this war." The final moments of the Galactic Council came when the 12 species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia met in their ancient council chamber for the last time. High Chancellor Mordock, the gray-skinned alien who had delivered the original ultimatum to humanity, faced the reality of total defeat. "The human fleet is in orbit," one of the council members reported. "Our defenses are destroyed, our fleets are scattered, and our people are demanding peace at any price. Mordok looked around the chamber at his fellow rulers, seeing fear and defeat in every face. The council that had seemed so powerful just 1 year ago was now reduced to a group of frightened aliens waiting for human mercy. Send a message to the human admiral, Mordok said quietly. Tell him the Galactic Council surrenders unconditionally. President Marcus Webb arrived at Nexus Prime 3 days after the planet's surrender, aboard the diplomatic ship TES Liberty. He came not as a conqueror seeking revenge, but as the leader of a new galactic order that would replace the Council's rule. The formal surrender ceremony took place in the same chamber where the Council had voted to destroy humanity just 1 year before. Now the surviving alien leaders knelt before the human president as he outlined the terms of their defeat. The Galactic Council is hereby dissolved, Webb announced to the assembled aliens and to the galaxy watching on live broadcasts. Its member species are invited to join the new Terran Empire as equals, not as rulers or subjects. The terms were surprisingly generous. Alien species that had fought against humanity were offered full membership in the new empire if they agreed to follow human leadership and contribute to galactic peace. Those that preferred independence were allowed to withdraw to their home systems, as long as they posed no threat to others. Dr. Foster was appointed to lead the new Galactic Science Council, with a mandate to share human technology with all member species, while developing new advances for peaceful purposes. Her first project was a galaxy-wide communication network that would prevent the kind of isolation and mistrust that had led to the war. Admiral Morrison was promoted to Grand Admiral of the Imperial Fleet, commanding a force that now included ships and crews from dozens of different species. Many former enemies had chosen to serve under human leadership rather than face an uncertain future alone. The transformation of the galaxy took years to complete, but the foundation was laid in those first weeks after the Council's defeat. The Terran Empire was not built on conquest and fear like the Council had been, but on the human ideals of freedom and cooperation. Standing in the observation deck of his new flagship, the TES Enterprise, Morrison looked out at a galaxy that was, finally, at peace. Human colonies that had been under siege just months before were now growing and prospering. Former enemy worlds were learning to work together under the Empire's protection. It's hard to believe it's really over, Captain Lisa Grant said, joining him at the window. She now served as his chief of staff, helping to coordinate the massive task of governing a galactic empire. The fighting is over, Morrison agreed, but our real work is just beginning. It's one thing to win a war. It's much harder to build something lasting from the victory. Dr. Foster's final report on the war's technology became the foundation for a new age of scientific advancement. The adaptive AI systems, quantum weapons, and other innovations developed during the conflict were turned toward peaceful purposes. Medicine, transportation, and communication all benefited from the rapid technological development that war had forced upon humanity. The Terran Empire's motto, inscribed on every government building and starship, captured the lesson humanity had learned from their unlikely victory: liberty through strength. It served as a reminder that freedom must sometimes be defended with force, but that true strength came from uniting different peoples under common ideals. Years later, as the Empire expanded to include hundreds of worlds and dozens of species, children would learn about the year when humanity faced extinction and chose to fight back instead of surrender. They would study the battles of New Austin and Kepler Station, the liberation of slave worlds, and the final assault on Nexus Prime. But most importantly, they would learn that sometimes the smallest and newest player in a game could change all the rules, if they had the courage to refuse defeat and the wisdom to build something better from their victory. The Galactic Council's ultimatum had indeed ended in ruin, but from that ruin had risen something greater, a galactic civilization based on human values of freedom, cooperation, and the belief that all intelligent species deserved the right to determine their own destiny among the stars.